Hi folks, welcome to another episode of NYC CNC. Had a job come in for engraving about a 6x6 inch plaque. I assume it's for someone who's retiring or some sort of an appreciation type of award, and they want to put this, I think, on a lamp. But pretty straightforward. They sent over the text, so I thought what I would do is show how in Sprute Cam we set up the text and then the cam and tool settings to engrave this. We're going to use a piece of stainless which should polish up real nice. I'm actually excited to see how this turns out. And then we'll go over to the machine and I'll show you a test piece I cut just to make sure I was happy with the look. And then we'll show you how we set up using some two-sided tape to hold the part and take it from there. First things first, in my opinion, Sprute Cam actually does an okay job with text. It's more convenient sometimes to do it in Sprute Cam than in a separate CAD program. I will show you my settings in case it is of interest. So to do a new line, and what I do, I found the easiest is to have each line be its own discrete text entity. That lets you move it around with the transform tool to center it or align it as you see fit. So we'll create a new one. And let's see here. We'll do YouTube demo. And we'll pick the font first. I'll go with stroked fonts, which are fonts that are easier to machine, or they look better when they're machined. And the font I used for this guy was LCOM. You're welcome to scroll around. There are a number of different fonts here. I'm sure you can install or buy fonts as well. We'll set the height first, and then we'll place the text and take a closer look. So this is about a 6x6 inch plaque, so the text is going to be somewhere around 3/8 of an inch. I think I actually used 35.35, and our text is down here. You can see it's quite, you can see the spacing is kind of messed up. So what we'll do is fix that first by doing the step over. I happen to know that I used a 0.03 step, and now we want to get that up here in this empty space. So position, we're already on aligning left, so we'll step over, inch, an inch, and 150 thou, and we'll go up 2.7, 2.625. That gives you kind of an idea how you can just quickly place it on the fly. And you can shrink the width of each character with the width here. So it's a narrower font, if you will. And then going back, the step is the space in between each font. So if we go up from 0.03 to 0.1, you'll see it's wider across. So we'll say we're happy with that, click OK. And now you've got a separate line of text. And when you are in your 2D contouring, you can select that and just choose to add it to your curves, and it will do that. You can see this is kind of a mess. It's got a bajillion cuts in it. That's one reason why this takes a while. It's actually an inefficient font because there's a lot of unnecessary detail that ends up getting machined away. In other words, you're not going to see a discrete line in the middle here. I like the look of it, and I'm not in a rush on this one. I'm actually going to let the part cut overnight, so I'll leave it as is. For our tool settings, we ignore that. We're using a 20-degree tip tool. I think it's from 2L Ink. I like their engravers. 5100 at, that should only be 1.5 inches. And 4th thou, no approach in or out, and 4th thou deep. I cut a partial engraving, as you can see right here, and I've already hit it on our buffing wheel. So I'll show you here in a second, but you can see there's a pretty darn good mirror finish there. We actually want to clean that up here in a second. And you can see before it was buffed out here on the sides. This is it's sort of an old school buffing kit. And it's got a dedicated wheel for stainless. You don't want to contaminate your wheels. And I use this stuff right here. All you do is put a little on your wheel and have to apologize, this is not where the grinder, it's not where the buffing wheel normally goes, so I've got to kind of hold it down. You can just run it along. Like so. Yeah, actually you can see the mirror there, that's great. But what we want to do is the buffing wheels leave a little residue in the engraving relief itself. So again, go back to our Palm Pre, and it should clean right up. There you go. Hard to beat that. Again, this was just a quick test, but I am very pleased with that look. So, in fact, there's the camera in the reflection right there. So let's hop over to the mill, get our real workpiece fixtured up, and start cutting. To secure our part, we're actually going to just tape it to the top of our vise here. We've got enough surface area to work with. Before we tape, we're going to grab some Palm Pre or any sort of degreaser. The tape needs to be on a really clean surface, and then you want to let this dry or burn off, if you will, before you use the tape. And this is our downside of our part. We'll clean our part off too. And again, let it dry. I'll show you after we're done with the engraving here. This stuff really holds. Now you know, it's also only tape, so we're not really doing any lateral load machining here. So don't get too carried away. But I'll tell you, it's pretty impressive. Sometimes when you have to peel this stuff off, how hard it can grab. So our part's going to sit on like this. You can see there is some overlap here. Don't worry about it. The program doesn't actually machine below this edge, and even if it did, I'm not sure how worried I would be. This is 16 gauge stainless, I think, and we're engraving a few thou deep. So let's grab our tape here. I don't remember where. I think it was from McMaster. 1.5 inch stuff. I've got quite a few rolls of it, which is why I haven't bought any in a while. And so we are going to tape 3 strips across. We only need to come down to where our vise ends, so about like so. Okay, push those down. One last check. Looks good. Down we go. I don't want to pull up too hard to break any of the bond or adhesion of the tape, but I'll tell you, it's on there. Okay, so let's measure our height offset, and we will start machining here. Okay. It won't be perfectly flat no matter what, but I'll tell you that's less than a few thou run out across a 6-inch part. Actually, that's really good. I'm happy with that. Now I'm just using a solid carbide single flute engraver, as you can see right here. This is not the best tool to do engraving with. In fact, this isn't even the best machine. Ideally, you'd have a much higher RPM machine with a spring-loaded floating engraving tool. I did a test cut, which you guys just saw. I'm happy with the quality, so this will do just fine. But again, as an FYI, if you do a lot of engraving, there are better options out there. Even one of those floating engraving tool bits in a Tormach with a 5,000 RPM spindle is a huge improvement over this fixed end mill, rigid end mill. And it also helps massively. It helps even at your chip load, and it helps account for the fact that no piece of sheet metal like this is going to be totally flat. Let's do a sanity check here on our height. Okay, yep, that looks good. And I had already eyeballed the X off camera. Just double check it here. We're going to clean this piece up after it's engraved on the edges. Okay, that's good. Yeah, it looks good too. The only other thing I'll mention too, a lot of times if you end up using a clamp of any kind when you're engraving, don't forget that you need to have enough Z-travel to clear it. That can nip everybody in the bud. And on that same note, this program is only going to run at 1.5 inches a minute, so it's going to take a couple hours, so I'm actually going to let it run overnight. So I'm not going to videotape it. I'm going to go do some other things. We'll come back and we'll take a look and see how it's doing, and then we'll let the rest of it run overnight, and we'll be back in the morning and take a look. Move it a little closer here, I'll give you a close-up. So hopefully that gives you the idea. It'll take a while, so we'll be back. Okay, it's been cutting for a few minutes and everything's looking good so far. So I'm gonna let that run overnight and we'll take a look and see how it is in the morning. Okay, machining is done. It's a little hard to see on the camera because of the reflection of the piece. So we'll take a closer look after we peel it off. I wanted to show you though how good the double-sided tape is. Obviously it machined fine, but you'll see when we try to pull this off here just how sticky this stuff is. I will caveat that by saying this has sat now for a while in a cold shop. And when the vise gets cold, it probably loses some of its adhesion. But my guess is this is still going to be on here pretty darn good. So let's go ahead and try. Oh yeah, that's on there. Holy cow. It's actually more than I wanted, to be honest with you. I've got that engraving bit in there. I'm going to take that out because if my hand flies up, I don't want to hurt myself. There it goes. Once you start to get it started, it'll come off a little better, usually. Whew. Okay, that took more than I thought. Anyways, you can see our plate looks good. It's a nice shiny piece of stainless to start with, so I think this is going to polish up real nice. Let's, oh, you know what? First I want to machine a couple of the rough edges so we have a nice finish around there. So let's do that real quick. I'm going to clean off my vise first. So it's a little bit of a pain in the butt. Frankly, I haven't had it stick this like this before. And I don't know, maybe that's because I left it on so long. But a little bit of some degreaser and Scotch-Brite does the trick. So it does take a minute, probably still worth it because it is a great way to fix these parts. But I'd be lying if I said this didn't take a few minutes of time to get this all cleaned up. I'm going to finish this up off camera. We'll be right back. Okay, we've got the part set back up on top of the vise, and I've got an aluminum block as a spacer with a piece of cardboard underneath it, or sort of heavy cardstock paper, just to serve as a protective layer to keep our top surface finish clean. And then I've got a strap clamp on it. What we're going to do is clean up the edge. I did take a test cut off camera to make sure I was happy with this. The question is this a rigid enough setup, particularly with this last area where we're actually totally unsupported. Normally you wouldn't love to do this, but I thought, let's just see if we can take a real thin cut and just clean up that edge. So we're going to take a light cut at 3,000 RPMs. I'm jogging at 20% on the Tormach, which should be about 20 inches a minute. And that's exactly what we wanted, was to hear to hear surface contact along the cut. So let's take a closer look. And I bet you that'll have cleaned that up. Yep, perfect. Now let's rotate. Make sure our vise is tight. Okay. Okay, now keep our part square. I can lower the strap clamps down one notch. You do want to try to keep the post at least in the center or closer to the end of the strap clamp to get the proper clamp down pressure. If you have the strap all the way back here, you're using the part more as a pivot and you're actually clamping with more pressure on your blocks. Okay, now the high spot is back here, so let's come I'll take this as a full pass just to make sure there are no other high spots, if you will. Okay. these are pretty shallow width of cuts, you know, 6 to 10 thou. Ooh, almost cutting. Okay, should only take 1 or 2 more here. Perfect. See how she looks. Perfect. All right. I am going to get this off the mill here, and then let's head over and do the fun part, which will be polishing this thing up. I'll be right back. We're back at the 6-inch buffing wheel. This is where we're at right now, just fresh off the mill. You can actually see me talking right there in the reflection. So again, not a bad piece to start with at all. But let's go ahead. We'll add some of this stainless polishing compound to our wheel, and let's start polishing it up. You can see I polished the top, you know, half or so, and let's just grab a paper towel and clean out with some Palm Pre again. We get build up in the engraving there. You can see how dirty that is from the residue of our wheel. Okay, getting there. A little bit more work to do. This, in my opinion, isn't exactly video-worthy stuff. You guys know what I'm doing here, so I'm going to have at it here for a few minutes. I'll be right back and see where we're at. Okay, here we have it. You can see the camera pretty darn clear in the reflection of the plate there. The camera does, I'll say, magnify some of the defects and scratches. It's not a perfect plate by any means, but it looks fine off camera, and it is acceptable for the task at hand. You can see me actually talking right there in the reflection. So I'm really happy with it. Turned out really nice. You know, polishing just takes a little bit of either using a grinder, of either using a buffing wheel, or you can even do it with some elbow grease and a rag. I did a final wipe with this with a non-porous cloth that won't scratch it. Even like paper towels at this point can scratch this stuff up. So we're gonna ship it. So that's it for today. I think the next thing I'm gonna work on is heat treating those 01 tool dies I made for the drawing the jackets. I never did heat treat them, so heat treat them, see if they move on us, and then I'm actually really excited. I've got a new idea for polishing the internal diameter, which is really important if you remember that. So stay tuned. I will get to that hopefully in the next few days. Take care, folks. Thanks.